Hello YouTube, this is Patrick God. Yes, this is really my last name. I would never use the Lord's name in vain. Why the hell would you think that? Why the hell? Yeah. Thanks for the feedback, I guess. Anyways, today we are going to implement JSON Web Token Authentication in .NET 6 in the .NET 6 Web API. But not only this, we will also create user models to, well, register a user, log the user in, and if the password is correct after logging in, then we will create this token and return it. So I think this is a good start for JSON Web Token Authentication and the custom authentication with .NET 6 and the Web API. And I would say, before we jump right in, please, if you like this video and learn something, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. It does make a difference. Thank you very much. Apart from that, maybe you wanna subscribe to my newsletter. That would be really nice, and you would get early access and free access to YouTube tutorials, online courses, and so on. And I promise I won't spam you. Maybe once a month or sometimes once a week I will send you an email. And apart from that, okay, gotta admit I forgot my coffee, but still thank you so much for buying me a coffee. I love you guys. This really means a lot to me and helps me making all these videos. And now I would say let's start a new project. So we see Visual Studio 2022 here, and we create a new project. And when my machine wants to, it doesn't take lots of time. So ASP.NET Core Web API. This is the thing we need here. I've got it here in the recent project templates, and I am having a little cold, so I hope my voice is okay and it doesn't bother you too much. But anyways, here's also the template in the, well, not in the suggestions here of the recent project templates, but you know what I mean. Additionally, of course, you can always search for this thing. So ASP.NET Core Web App. It's not a web app, it's Web API in this case here. But of course, I don't know, maybe you want to create a Blazor WebAssembly app. You can totally do that as well. Use ASP.NET Core hosted, and then you got a Web API as well. And then, well, create a JSON Web Token Authentication. Now let's give this thing a name. Let's call that, I don't know, JWT Web API tutorial. So JSON Web Token Web API tutorial, click next. .NET 6 is the framework we want to use. No authentication here now. We will use the custom authentication. We configure this for HTTPS. That's okay. We use controllers and also enable Open API support. So we get a Swagger UI thingy here that we can use to well, test our implementations. All right, we are here already and taking some time today. I don't know what's going on. It's Sunday, so maybe my machine thinks, well, what the heck is going on, Patrick? Not on Sunday, man, really. Need some coffee first. But anyways, let's see. So we've got our program CS here. If you're not familiar with .NET 6 already, we do not have a startup CS file anymore. So if you want to get started with .NET 6 Web API in general, please check out the info card. I made a complete tutorial with the .NET 6 Web API and Entity Framework Core and a SQL Server Express database. So maybe you want to watch that first and then you get back here. So I won't go into deep in here. Now what I want to do is we create 3 models. 2 of them would be data transfer objects in essence, meaning we would just use this data to transfer, well, in essence, the username or an email address and the password to the controller, to the web API. And the other thing is the user model, the actual user model, which will then store a password. We will use a password hash here with the password salt. So I think this is, again, a good start for this stuff here. So let's just create 3 classes. Right-click the project and then add class. And then we call the first thing user register. And let's think about that. I got no scripts. I think I have to mention that. So I would just think, my boy is sleeping, and I thought, okay, I've got maybe half an hour or an hour, so let's do this tutorial real quick. Or let's call this user DTO. Thinking about what to use here, because in, for instance, the e-commerce course or the Blazor WebAssembly bootcamp, there we would use a user register DTO, where we would say, well, we create a property for the username, for instance. So this is the username. Of course, this is a string. And the .NET 6, let's set this to string empty first. And in then in the bootcamp or the other courses, we would use a password. That's correct. Oh, I lost IntelliCode. IntelliCode is really great. But also a confirm password property, for instance. So this is just for the registration then, where we use a form and use validation, where you can see, hey, this confirm password is not the same as the password value, so please let's fix that. But for this case now, I think this is totally sufficient. We will use this DTO for the registration and also for logging in. So user DTO, user data transfer object for the username with the username and the password, and I think this is totally fine then. And now the actual user model, this is something you would also store in the database, but we won't do that here. Again, in the courses, of course, we do that, but since this should really be a quick tutorial, what we do here, also use the username. You would also add an ID when you want to store the user in the database, but again, we won't do that here. And now we won't store the password in plain text, of course. What we need here is a byte array with a password hash, actually. So password hash, and also a byte array with a password salt. And this is the first thing we're going to do. We will create a password hash and a password salt, and then we will store this, well, first in the controller here. So when we restart the web API or the whole application, then we won't have the user here anymore, of course. But anyways, I think we can totally do it like that. So we've got our user DTO, we've got our user model with the password hash and the password salt. And now in the controllers, let's create a new one. And this is an API controller, which is empty, and we call this thing auth controller. All right. And now the very first thing here we can do is create a method to register a user. Now that'll be a post method, so maybe add our attribute here, HTTP post with a route already. Let's call this register. And this then is a public async task action results. And this will return, let's see, maybe just, or maybe the user. Why not? We can return the finished user then. And also let's store the user here, of course. So public async user is a new user, and we will reset this thing. This is not async. What the heck am I doing here? It's a static user, and give this a name, of course. All right, so this is our user now. Great. And we create the register method here with a user DTO. Let's call that request maybe. And now with that, what we are going to do is we again create a password hash. For that, we need a new method. In the course, again, I have to, well, mention the course sometimes because we dive a lot deeper into the whole authentication part here. For instance, we won't use the controller here for all the logic. This would then be a fat controller. We actually use the repository pattern with an authentication service, with dependency injection, and so on. But again, for this quick tutorial, to give you a little jump start here, let's do it real quick and dirty maybe. But in production, maybe you want to change that. Anyways, the first thing we need is a create password hash method, and this thing uses an algorithm, a cryptography algorithm, to create the password salt and the password hash, and then store that in the user object. And then when the user is trying to log in, we will again create the password hash with the stored salt and just compare these two, and if they are correct, then we will create the JSON web token. So you see the JSON web token part comes a bit later, but I think this is a good first start and a good way to learn this, the procedure, I guess. All right, so our create password hash method first. So private void, so this time it doesn't return anything. We will use out parameters here, so we can kind of return two values here. Create password hash, which gets the password as a string. This is the plain password, and then it returns the first byte array, which is the password hash, and also not return, sorry, but I think you mean what you know what I mean. So, and then the password salt. All right. Okay, and now with that, and again, with that, we use a cryptography algorithm. Call this HMAC, and this thing is the HMAC SHA-512 algorithm. We create an instance of this thing, and we need the system security cryptography reference here. So what I did, if you don't know it, control period, and then you get this quick fix menu here. You could also use the light bulb. Works the same. All right, and now with that, this instance of the HMAC SHA-512 class does already create a salt. So we could simply say HMAC key is our salt here, and then to get the password hash, we say HMAC, and now compute hash, and with that we say get bytes from our password, like that, and we need another reference here. Okay, we have to specify this a bit more precise. So system encoding UTF-8. That's the one, I think. System encoding, system text. Text is missing. System text encoding UTF-8 get bytes password, and this would then be our password hash with the compute hash method here, and this thing also uses the key, which is in essence now the salt. All right, and with that, we get our values, and now we can go to our register method. We call our CreatePasswordHash method, so CreatePasswordHash with the request password, and again out parameters of course, so out byte password hash, and then out byte and password salt, like that. And with that, now we set our user password hash to password hash, user password salt is password salt, and we can wait a sec. Also, what we have to do is, of course, username is the request username, like that, and then we return our user. All right, that's it for registration. Let's test that already, I guess. Build this thing. Okay, there we are. We've got our models here. That's nice. We've got the register method. Let's try this. String. Why not? Execute. And there we are. We've got our username, string. We've got the password hash and the password salt. Isn't that great? Let's try it with another user. Maybe Tony Stark. Tony Stark's great. Password. All right. Works as well. Okay, great. So our user now is Tony Stark, and now let's create the login method. So let's go down here, and let's also make a post method out of that, but we call this thing now login, public async task action result, and let's say this thing returns just a boolean. No, it does return a string, of course, but because this then will be our token actually. So public async task action result string, that's correct. Login would be the name, and also again we use our DTO here. And now first let's check if the user exists, maybe. All right, so we just check if the username is here already. So if the username equals, and I know you can do this way better with equals and the ordinal case and ignore the case or to lower and so on, but again, let's make this quick and dirty. So if the username, and we only got one user, right? So we do not have to search for the user actually, but we just check if the username is correct here. And if the username is actually not the request username, then we return a bad request. Like that. And maybe add a message here. User not found. Like that. And else. First we return okay. My crazy token. For now. Let's test that real quick. Okay, app has been restarted, I guess. So we have no user. Let's see. We try the registration. This worked. And now when we try to log in, also with string, hit execute. We get my crazy token. What about string 1? Execute. User not found. Okay, perfect. This is exactly what we want. This works. And now we have to verify the password, of course. So for that, we need another function, which is returning a bool. So private bool verify password hash with the string password. And now also bytes password hash and a byte password salt. All right. And now in here again, we create an instance of the HMAC SHA-512 cryptography algorithm, but we'll give this thing our password salt from the user. So using var HMAC is a new HMAC SHA-512. And now this would be our user password salt, like that. And in here now, again, we create our password hash with HMAC, compute hash, and here we will use again system text encoding, UTF-8, get bytes, and here now we will use the password and we don't have to parse this. So we got our password the user has entered on logging in, and we return now not compute, let's call this computed, otherwise this might be a bit confusing. So the computed hash value, and we will compare this byte by byte with the password hash. And we can do that with this cute little function here, sequence equal password hash, and this then will return true or false, right? So we put in the password here that the user has entered with the login method here, and then we will use the password hash and the password salt of our stored user. And actually, yeah, we could do it like that, but let's do it with the parameter actually, so it's really used. And yeah, and with this new instance, then we create a new computed hash value with the login password and the salt here. And if the resulting password hash then is the same as the stored password hash, then this means the user has entered the correct username and the correct password. Okay, I hope this is clear now. So let's check another thing here. If now the username is not correct, then we will return a bad request with user not found. Now, if the verify password hash method with the request password and then the user password hash and the user password salt does not return true, then we return bad request, wrong password. All right, okay, I'll save that and rebuild the app, hopefully. All right, let's see. Again, we register the user, string, execute. All right, this worked, and now let's log in. Try it out, execute. my crazy token, everything is correct. What about string 1? Execute user not found. And what about string 1 for the password? Execute wrong password. All right, so this works just fine. And now finally the JSON web token. All right, so back to our login method, and we will create the token here with a new method, of course, called CreateToken. And this method gets the user here. Method is not there yet, but it will be in a couple of minutes. And this will be a bit complicated. So first it'll return a token, and this is a string, so private string create token with the user like that. All right, and in the end let's also already return string empty, so the error is gone. And now first the claims. Now what are the claims? Maybe you know this already when when you're looking for a tutorial about JSON Web Tokens. Well, claims are in essence just, well, properties in essence that are describing the user that is authenticated. For instance, the user ID could be stored in the token, or the username, email, anything you want. And this is again then in the token, and we can read that with a corresponding client application. For instance, a Blazor WebAssembly client app. Again, we'll do that in the Blazor Bootcamp e-commerce course and so on. And these are claims. So let's put some claims there, or just one claim. Usually I would add the user ID as name identifier, and also the email address for the name, or the username for the name. Let's just add this step by step, and then you will see what I mean by that. So first we need a list of claims. And this is a new list of claims, and we can already create this list here, and we add system security claims as a reference here. And now we add a new claim with claim types. And now you can see this here. These are some things that are already suggested: name identifier, country, name, RSA, Windows account name, and so on. Of course, there are also some functions like equals, gender. Lots of stuff you could use. Postal code, role, very interesting, of course, when we use authorization with an administration backend, for instance. Yeah, lots of stuff. And let's just say we use claim types name here. And for that, of course, we use the username. And that's it already. So with that, we've got our claims. And the next thing we need is a key, a system symmetric security key. So our key is a new symmetric security key. I need another reference. System identity model tokens. All right. Wait a sec. I think that's not the correct one. We actually need Microsoft Identity Model Tokens. I think that's the one. Find and install a latest version. Yeah, we added this. And now this thing gets something interesting. Again, we need system, text, encoding, UTF-8, get bytes, and then we need a key, a top secret key that we wanna put in the app settings usually. So what we can do, well, let's just do it that way. So we've got our login section here, allowed host, and so on. And we will add another section. Again, you can put this here. You can put this in a secret store, or you just type it into your controller. This would maybe not be the best way, but still, let's do it here. So I think maybe you get a bit more value out of this and not just type it into the controller. Because when we're doing it here, we have to access the configuration. With that, we need a constructor in the controller to inject the configuration, actually. And yeah, again, maybe you learned something new. If so, don't forget to click the like button. Would really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So in our app settings file, we add a new section. Let's just call this app settings. Maybe you can see it here. Connection strings is something you would also put here. Do that in the web API tutorial. And in here we just call this token. And this can be anything, for instance, my top secret key for creating the JSON Web Token. Just make sure that it has at least 16 characters. And with that, we go to our controller, add a new constructor here, CTOR, hit tab twice. And then we need the I configuration. We call this configuration, and we create and assign this field here. And now in here, we can actually access our configuration, get section, app settings token. And from that, we want to get the value. And with that, we've got our key. Okay. As I said, a bit more complicated. But this is how you create a JSON Web Token. After that, we need signing credentials. So var creds, a new signing credentials with this key we just created. And also, again, the security algorithm, which would be the HMAC SHA-512 signature algorithm. All right. And then we define the properties, or, well, let's say the payload in essence, of the JSON Web Token. With var token is a new JWT security token. And this is getting, again, some arguments, and we have to install system identity model tokens JWT. So let's do that. And when this is done, we can set some stuff. For instance, the claims are our claims now. Then we can set an expiration date. So expires, let's say, date time now at days 1. So that's really, so this token would then be valid for 1 day. Don't know what the problem here is, but let's see. And then the signing credentials again, which are our creds here. And this should be it. Semicolon here. Yeah, and not here. Okay, so this should be our token then. And then finally, the string we want. So our JSON Web Token is new JSON Web Token security token handler. And from this thing, we use the write token method with our token, and this then will be returned. So JWT. Okay, so please rewind the video. I don't know how much time I've got left because my boy is maybe waking up any minute. And we are using this method here and returning it. All right. I would say we test this. Okay. Let's see. We've got our register method. We try this. And what do we get? Multiple constructors accepting argument. Should only be one applicable constructor. Well, I thought that there is only one constructor. What the hell? Let's stop the app. Let's stop this. Restart it. And let's have another look. Register, try this out, execute, and now it worked. Jesus Christ, this is really something about Visual Studio 2022, I think. Maybe also .NET 6, I don't know. But sometimes, it should be Visual Studio, of course. Sometimes it's, I don't know, you get some errors and you think, what the heck is going on? But actually, you just have to stop the application, restart it, and then everything works. Anyways, registration worked, and now, drum roll, hit execute, and there's our token. Great, but let's use another name maybe. So again, username Bruce Wayne, execute, and then logging in with, and also the correct password, hit execute. There's our sweet token, and now we can go to the website JWT.io. There we are, and now let's just enter this here. And what do we get? The name, Bruce Wayne, and the expiration dates, Monday, November 29th. All right, so this is everything. Let me just push this to GitHub real quick. So you really got the code. Create Git repository. JSON Web Token API tutorial. This is public. Yeah, create and push. Did I enter a message? I'm not sure, but I think this is a default message. Let's see. Yeah, add project files. Okay, all right, that's it. Okay, so I hope you learned something. With that, you can now, well, create a user registration, logging in a user, and returning a JSON web token. Again, of course, this is not everything. The next step would be to use the JSON web token and put it in the authorization or authentication header of your HTTP requests. And this is actually why we do this, because otherwise you would have to, well, with every request send the username and the password of the user. Yeah, with every request you have to send this thing. Now you can just use the JSON web token, and I think this is much better, a lot more secure, and you cannot read the password, of course. And well, to use this, then you would use the authorized attribute, for instance, so that only authorized users can access a certain method in the web API, and so on. Now, please give me some feedback if you want to see that here on YouTube. You can already see that in my courses, but of course I can make videos here on YouTube just for you guys. I hope you learned something. Would really appreciate it if again you click the like button, subscribe to my channel, maybe subscribe to the newsletter, and coffee. Thank you so much for all the coffee. I really need that. Again, mentioning my boy quite often. Well, you know, lately he's not sleeping very well, but I guess this is the thing with toddlers in essence. And yeah, but lots of fun. Anyways, okay, so again, thank you very much for watching, and I see you next time. Take care.